Okay, James, welcome to Basis 23, Part 3. Different day, different time. We were talking in the last two parts about the mixture of bloodlines and that clone that's going around called Roosevelt, Rockefeller. What does the meaning of bloodlines, what's the significance of that? What are the individual bloodlines, and what is the significance of bringing them together?
Well, as I mentioned on the last section, there's two main bloodlines that come together, which is one is a Zionist Jewish bloodline. Some say the descendants of Jesus, and then the other is the Odinist bloodline. It's a Germanic Aryan bloodline. So the two have they've been at war with each other for a long time, and now it's joining together of the two. And the leaders of both bloodlines, you mentioned what's the relevance for the average Joe. They don't care about the average person. They're getting ready to move into a transhuman world where most people are either dead or they're converted.
Now, what do you mean by dead or converted?
They've either been reduced, the population has been reduced, and they're part of that, or the ones that survive have been converted into the so-called transhuman.
What now? Okay, let's go back. What was the origin of this war, and what does that war derive from?
The war between the two bloodlines has it's gone back probably thousands of years to Atlantis, but in modern history, it's seen its expression in the Russian Revolution in the early 1900s, where the Bolshevik Jews they slaughtered millions of white Russians during the Red Terror.
And the White Russians were Caucasian or Slavic or
They were Caucasian.
yeah.
It was the Bolshevik Jews who were in charge of the Red Terror, the Russian Revolution. So that it had its expression in that, and then World War II, the Aryans returned the favor in kind and took out a lot of Jews. So it's been going back and forth in that in its modern expression.
Okay, that's a modern expression, but was this an extraterrestrial war that's come terrestrial?
Um, yes, they're two non-human races. One side, the Jewish side, the leaders are a reptilian race who they're actually reptilians, but they pose as human shapeshifters.
So, I mean, are you saying that Zionists or the Zionists different to the Jews? Is there?
The elite, the leaders who are running that bloodline are reptilian. Reptilians who, like I say, cloak themselves in human form. The Odinists, the Germanic bloodline is there's definitely a lot of reptilian DNA, but they're not reptilian shapeshifters. They're cyborgs. They're more human-looking cyborgs.
So essentially, we're dealing with a reptilian war, a reptilian faction.
Yeah, it's we're dealing with a reptilian war. Two reptilian factions have been fighting against each other. That's true. Yes.
And
The
they
human,
they control the earth or seek to control the earth. What are the other root races on the earth? I mean, you've got the Chinese, Indians, all those other types.
they
What
well,
say do they have in this?
well,
I
that's
mean, if we're talking
interesting.
about a global population reduction, surely they'd like to know what
Um,
was the reason.
they are considered by the ruling races to be subhuman races who interbred with animals. So, for instance, the black race was supposedly originally a white race and an off-planet white race who was the ancestors of the black race were apparently trapped on some planet, some unpleasantly hot jungle planet, and the males caught some type of disease, some type of rabies, jungle sort of fever disease, and most of the males died. The females subsequently went insane and started to mate with the jungle monkeys and gorillas, and from that, the uh, the black race was created.
Now,
So
this is obviously very controversial stuff. There'll be three people throwing, God knows what at the screen. I mean, where does this information come from?
well, that information was given to. This is the information that is taught at the higher levels of these secret societies. But this particular information was given to Billy Meyer from Semyazi, the female Pleiadian they visited. And so the information, the origins of the black race were confirmed by her. Now she was, it seems that Semyazi, the Billy Meyer contact, was actually Maria Ortiz.
And what's the significance of that?
Well, the the Pleiadians that visited Billy Meyer in Switzerland, they came down in their ships, but they seemed to be giving him what appeared to me to be Jewish communist propaganda, and but at the same time they were giving him access to laser beam weapons that could fire through trees and leave huge holes in trees. So they were
You're talking about Billy Meyer.
What's that, Miles?
You're talking Billy Meyer here.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Um, I mean, some people would say that whole story is a complete hoax. I mean, he hoaxed the whole thing, made models and stuff. I mean, how do you get around that problem?
I mean, I'm not here to talk about Billy Meyer,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I believe it's a true case.
Okay, so we're getting down to the original root races, but you're really basing a lot of the history on what happened in the 20th century. But you connected Atlantis there. The Irish, or those who civilized Europe from the west, i.e., what we now call the, the British Isles. I mean, what you came from Cornwall, or that's where you grew up. Uh, what's the connection with Atlantis there?
I think there was a big Phoenician connection with Cornwall, and even the descendants of Odin were they came to the British Isles and Cornwall because the progenitor of the Germanic race, the Aryan race, was actually Odin himself. Now, if you mention this, obviously people don't want to have to get a degree in ancient history to understand this, but
Yeah.
the Odin line can be traced through the Eric Bloodaxe, the king of Norway, also known as Eric the Red.
Right.
Now, he came to Northumbria, northern England, in 947 AD, and he was the king of England in Northumbria at the time. And so after that, a lot of the English kings descended from him. He was Eric Bloodaxe, the king of Norway, descendant of Odin himself.
Now, but you're talking basically a reptilian faction as human.
Yeah.
So,
The,
I mean, this is a bit rich if you've got an alien reptilian shape-shifting race, then accusing the other ones of being subhuman. I mean, how does all that work out? You've got Chinese, the Sino races, and the Indian races. Then,
they
I mean, if
consider
they're all going to be wiped out in some global new world order thing, surely they'd like to sort of vaguely know really what's the cause.
it's the survival of the fittest. In nature, you'll never see a superior race give charity to a weaker race. What I mean by that is, in nature, if there's a weaker species of bird or a weaker species of wolf, for instance, the stronger species won't turn around and help the weaker species to survive. The nature will find a way to get rid of the weaker species as quickly as possible. So the strongest survival of the fittest will stay at the top of the chain. And these are unchanging laws of nature.
So what we're looking at is an agenda which will reduce the population. Is this the Georgia Whitestones agenda, basically?
Yes, it's connected to that. Yes.
And this is what the function of the Fourth Reich is.
Yes. I mean, they haven't changed their policies. It's like
Because
we discussed in the last section. They're looking to recreate a paradise Earth again, almost like going back to the Garden of Eden, which is almost like the Earth transformed into one big similar to a national park.
But where does all the machinery come from to run this? Where does all this, where how's this paradise run?
I think you can terraform a planet very quickly with the right machinery. I mean, there's a lot of machinery stored all over the place.
And that effectively would mean changing the atmosphere pretty rapidly.
Yeah, it'd be a very oxygen-rich atmosphere with a lot of trees.
But how do you? What's the plan to basically reduce the population to start with?
Um, I think the what's going to happen now is there's a lot of demanning of the British and American armies.
Yes, I mean I noticed the huge demanning. I mean, and the infrastructure of the British Armed Services is collapsing, basically.
So what you're going to see is the wars in the Middle East winding down now. The whole Middle East conflict winding down. They're going to get rid of a lot of the soldiers. They're going to break the standard British and American army down. And there's going to be the focus that now is going to be on America. Once the wars in the Middle East start to wind down, the world's eyes are going to be on America. And that's all going to be about racial issues. Every race is going to be brought into every subject now. And
I know, of course, with Obama as president, which it seems that quite a few people knew he was going to be president before the election. How does that play out?
well, Obama is now making statements like, we need to focus on race. Let's talk about race. And that is going to be the focus. The world media is going to be focused on America now.
Well,
And
what about I mean, the political situation contains a number of nuclear powers like Korea, China. Would they not have something to say about this? Would India not have something to say about this?
yes, I mean, something big is gearing up. Obama is a Marxist communist, essentially. So he will push in the agendas of the Zionists, which will be race mixing, race issues in America.
But that doesn't basically solve the problem that America is got to deal if there's going to be if you're going to bump a lot of people off, maybe they may wish to sort of maybe not be bumped off. I mean, how's the agenda going to deal with these people who are going to maybe slightly object to this?
Well, America is finished. America is gone. That is what the main thing standing in the way of the new world.
I mean, you've
So,
gone to America, you've joined the American army, but you initially opened this basis by saying you're with the Fourth Reich.
well, the new IBIS protocols stated they needed to seed foreign agents into foreign militaries. So we're just bringing this agenda in one step at a time.
But the basic thing is, I mean, if as civilizations constantly migrate, follow the sun, the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, formed the British Empire, then the British Empire collapsed, you've got the American Empire, and the American Empire is going to collapse, and you've got the Chinese Empire. Surely that's the logic of it. Surely the Chinese are the next big players in this game. How are they going to be stopped? What's the plan to deal with them?
Well, I don't think the plan is to stop them. I think the plan is to stir up World War III to help with the population reduction, because the same people are running all the governments and all the countries. The individual who and the small group of individuals who were given the artifacts, the Spear of Destiny, or Odin's Spear, Gungnir, they would have the ability to shape the course of whole nations. And it's an important point to say this event happened to myself and Gridkeeper starting in 2007. There was another individual with us at the time we were close with. Now, the three of us were contacted by an individual from America, from North Carolina. And this guy was high-level Illuminati, was actually close to JFK, John Kennedy, when he was a child.
Yeah.
Now, what had happened was when he was a child, he used to play in the woods in North Carolina near his home, and two individuals approached him in the woods. They matched the description of Sem Yazi and one of the male played-in contactees of Billy Meier. They matched the exact description. They were dressed in white robes, and Sem Yazi being Maria Ortiz. Now they approached our friend, his name's Michael too, and they presented him with an artifact in the woods and said, "This belongs to you." And it was a spear. It was a gold spear. And he said, why, he was questioning, why does it belong to me? And they said, when you're older, you'll understand. And he tried to give it back to the male, and the male didn't want it. He seemed scared to touch it. And he says, no, I can't look after this anymore. We have to give this to you. And you
In
have
other
to
words, once you take it, you sort of imprint on it. You sort of take ownership.
It can only be given to certain bloodlines. And this guy was a descendant of Charlemagne, the French king. And he was instructed to take it and bury it, hide it, which he did. And it stayed buried for a number of years. And when this individual came to visit us in England, got the plane over. Now he said he just changed the locations. He buried it in a new location and showed us photographs of the new location where it was buried. And he arrived in Chichester, and the four of us, we drove up to Scotland together, up to Balmoral in Scotland. And we were supposed to be involved there in a ritual. We were based near Balmoral Castle, and the Queen. We knew the Queen was there at the time. I think Prince Charles was there at the time visiting, and we posted ourselves up one night near Balmoral Castle on a hill, and we did our own ritual, our own based on Knights Templar rituals. You just excuse me a second, Mark.
Is that the pussycat?
Yeah, it's letting the cat out. So we based our ritual on Knights Templar rituals. And
Are you able to mention anything, the significance of those rituals? Anything at all?
It goes back to France in the 18th century, which is important in all this, especially the area of Alsace-Lorraine on the border of France and Germany. So we called these rituals the Knights of Sabathiel rituals. And when we completed the rituals, kind of black triangle crafts appeared and started to fly near us. And so we ended up with some missing time, and it recovered.
What part of where were you based?
Just near Balmoral Castle.
Just in it?
No, just on the outskirts of Balmoral Castle, just on the hills, just outside the castle.
But you weren't in the grounds of the Balmoral?
We weren't in the grounds, no, we were just outside the grounds.
Yeah.
And then we completed our ritual one night, and TR3s turned up. We had some missing time, and it turns out we'd been taken to the castle, where we'd been involved in the second part of the ritual, where the Queen was there, and we were supposed to be measured on this special type of technology, like a type of scale, where the person who remembered the most from France, 18th century, would appear to be lighted, would physically be lightest on the scale. And the person who was lightest would be empowered with the spear of Odin. So out of the four of us, one of us was empowered with the spear.
Was that the grid keeper?
I don't want to say who it was,
Okay.
but we all worked together, the four of us, and so the spear is brought out from time to time, and it seems to, when you touch it, you seem to change on a genetic level where you remember what you could do as an Atlantean Superman, and then you can recreate what you could do back then.
The Atlantean Supermen, were they the modified versions of humanity at that time, which is what got the Atlanteans into trouble? Is that why they were wiped out?
Um, I think, I think they were the original Fourth Reich, and the leaders obviously survived since that time. So they're alive in modern times, so they're thousands of years old. But the spear, the Odin spear Gungnir, is essentially an ancient Atlantean artifact.
So it's a terrestrial artifact from that era.
Yes, that's correct. And when it links up with um, the soldier can have the ability to levitate and other abilities, generate force fields around their
Yeah.
bodies, and even the plasma weaponry that comes out the eyes, and
Now,
it comes,
yesterday you said it came out of the knuckle.
yeah, it comes out of the knuckle, the middle knuckle, just here,
Yeah.
and comes out the eyes too. And this this technology, it can cut people in half, or it can just set their head on fire, set the whole being on fire. It can disintegrate the whole person, and it can be opened up where
You mean
it can be
defocus to a wider beam?
yeah, with a wider beam, exactly. So you can be positioned in a higher position, and you could open up the beam, and essentially you could take out a whole army with it.
So you could have
Now,
one person basically take out a whole army.
yeah, exactly.
And so that's basically what the super soldier manufacturing is about. You mentioned the addition of these reptilian arms and things.
This is done with hardware. Um, the beings. I think a lot of these Fourth Reich soldiers are originally, obviously, from Atlantis, but Aldebaran before this. And
What is that? What's Aldebaran? Is it another?
well,
Is
it's
it the inner Earth or
the star system in the Pleiades, and I think there's connections to the inner Earth. Who the Vril Society were in contact with the Aldebarans, and the German language is a form of Aldebaran. It's the Anunnaki language, basically. And Michael Prince is actually a Aldebaran name.
it's not a
It's
rank then?
it's a German name, but the closest English translation is Michael Prince.
Now, is that your adopted name or what's your name?
That is the name that my mother gave me at birth.
Okay.
And my mother is from Aldebaran.
Now, is she there in the sense that she's reincarnated, or is her body physically?
Physically, she's very old. Um, I mean, there's a lot of controversy about who my biological father is. I know in Canada, in the base in the 70s, Alfred Bonner would take me out the facility, and he had a cabin in the mountains. And as a baby and as a young child, he'd carry me through the snow in his arms, up through the mountains, up to the cabin, up to his cabin. And he had a fireplace there, and he'd read me stories and things like that. That was the only time I had human contact at the base. It was the only time I was shown any affection.
What kind of things were you shown?
Well, he would take me from the base and he wrapped me up in a blanket and he just carried me in the snow up the mountain. And he'd carry me to his cabin. And there we would just sit in front of the fireplace and he'd read me stories. We stayed up there for a couple of days at a time.
Just ordinary fairy tales or what?
There was a lot of Norse mythology that he'd read me. Um, so that was the closest thing I was a father-son relationship at the time, any sort of human contact. Because it was a different story in the facility itself. I don't know why they were letting people take the babies out for a couple of days at a time, but they were.
Well, there must have been a reason for that. To give them some kind of empathic contact with a human or what? Or did
Well,
Bonner
that's
shapeshift or what?
Alfred Bonner's not human, but I mean he looks human. But that's a human kind of relationship or shows of affection. So maybe so we could function in society and pass ourselves off as human when we were older.
At what age was you at this time when this was initiated?
He would do that when I was a baby.
Yeah,
So
it has to be done at that young age.
I just remember him. He'd wrap me up in a blanket. I was just a little baby and carry me through the snow. And then it went up to about the age of 3 or 4. But at the age of 4, that's when the rescue happened. So we were moved out of Canada anyway.
So then your childhood, it was, how did you get to Cornwall then?
Um, was taken by my adopted mother to England in around 1980, and then we traveled all around the world, like Malaysia and different places. And we
Yeah.
settled back in England, around London, then moved to Berkshire
And the
after that.
Peasmore place.
Well, my stepfather worked near Peasmore. It was fairly close to Peasmore. My school was near Peasmore, Deanfield Secondary School.
Was that, I gather, the present Prime Minister came from Peasmore, spent some time there.
I heard David Cameron grew up or something in Peasmore, of some
Yeah.
connection.
But I mean, that's probably just a coincidence. It wouldn't be any.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's no such thing.
So where do you where do you've now okay that brings us up to really a lot of the material that we covered in bases 9, I think.
I mean, since then I've had more of an understanding of what I am and what I'm capable of, just from memories from the operations with the U.S. Army. I mean, we were definitely given a lot of scopolamine during these operations
Now,
where,
what's that? What kind of drug is that?
well,
We're bringing basically to the last 12 months.
the scopolamine is, they call it the devil's breath. It's found down in South America. It's from a plant. And the CIA have weaponized it. And you're still awake and you can still conscious and you can still move around, but you're in a very open, suggestible state. There's been video footage of people using it in South America, and they've blown the powder into people's faces, and then they've got the person to take them to the ATM machine and empty their bank account out themselves and give the person all their money.
Right?
So it makes you very suggestible, and then it doesn't destroy the memories, but suppresses the memories. You don't remember a thing afterwards. It's like a super roofie kind of thing.
So does that mean that you will eventually remember your exploits that you've gone through in the
Well, they're
last 9
starting to
months?
come back. There's definitely a lot of this stuff connecting with the spear, and they're using these plasma cannons and using these plasma laser beams. There's a lot of that going on. Now, there was a video uploaded to YouTube in July 2011, and it was uploaded by John Hutchison, the government scientist.
Yes. Well, I don't know
Uh,
if he was a government scientist, but you're talking
he,
to the guy who they got the Hutchison effect. Hutchison.
well, apparently he did work for the government. He did he worked for some intelligence agency, and he was actually based in Canada, in British Columbia, interestingly enough. I think that's where he was from. And now he uploaded this video of a police officer in America, and he uploaded this video in, I think it was July 2011. A police officer stops a guy on the side of the road in a car, gets out to question the guy, and the guy hits him with some kind of laser death ray and disintegrates the police officer next to the car and leaves him in like a smoldering pile of bones on the floor, and then drives off. Now, I sent you a link to that video. Now, the picture of me with the stone was taken in October of 2011. And now, John Hutchison his specialty was working with advanced laser beams. He called it the death ray.
Yeah. A
Now,
laser,
this,
of course, being a lot more a lot more than just a beam of light. There's a lot more you can do in that.
well, this is what they've miniaturized these, and they've incorporated it into the cybernetic exoskeleton. Tiny little plasma cannons, but they're devastatingly powerful. And
That means they're able to deliver more than just a shattering blow. It must actually transfer that energy very effectively to the rest of the substance, so it just obliterates it.
well, I mean, it can, yeah, I mean, it can do so much. It can leave a person in a small pile of smoldering bones on the floor, and just completely microwave them. And this now, when I was handed the Brazilian Princess Topaz in the JP Morgan Hall of Gems, now I was supposed to hold in, tune in to a particular reptilian who was on the run, this reptilian. Now
Right.
his name was Belial.
Belial,
Belial. Now
Billy.
Bel Iel, Belial. Now I first remember meeting Belial in a place called Cloud's House in Wiltshire around 2003. Now this house was owned by Alistair Crowley, and I'm
Is
not going
that
to say what I was
whereabouts
doing.
in Wiltshire?
Um,
I mean,
it's
it's
in a
crop circle country. Boscombe Down, Porton Down.
Yeah, it's near Boscombe Down. It's in a place called East Noyle, Wiltshire.
Right.
It's not now. Yeah, it's called Cloud's House. It's quite a famous place. It used to be owned by Alistair Crowley. There's the statues of devils and reptilians all over the walls there. I'm not going to say what I was doing there, but there's entrances to the underground bases in the area in that house.
Well,
And
there's Boscombe, Porton, and I think another base.
yeah, yeah, and they have ships approaching, and people and beings come from the ship straight into the house, and then from the house it's a big mansion. They come into human society, so that it's a big gateway. That house, it's a very important place.
Yeah, I mean, we have an eyewitness to somebody seeing a large UFO come down and land at Porton Down. So
It's
maybe.
it's very close by. I mean, it's a huge gateway for activity, alien activity into England, and so I was actually staying there, I was sleeping at the house there. I spent about 6 weeks there. And one night, two NSA agents came into my room and took me down to one of the larger rooms downstairs and there was old chairs set out, and there was a being with his back to me, sat down. He looked like an old man with a robe on and a hood up. And when I walked to the front, he looked up, and it was reptilian, with reptilian eyes, horns,
How many horns? What did it look like?
just two, just one here and one here. Red skin, reptilian eyes. Looked like your classic portrayal of the devil, really.
I mean, a bit like the guy in the Star Wars film.
Yeah, Darth Maul, similar to that. Yeah, and I sat down, and I mean, when he looked up and I saw it was a reptilian, I kind of staggered back. But then I got my wits about me, and we sat down and we had a conversation. I'm not sure if it was telepathic or not. And he was talking about how do we, the two bloodlines, come together to create this symbol, the swastika within the Star of David. He wanted to know how the two bloodlines have come
Yeah, I
together.
looked that up.
It's like I say, it's a sign of the Raelians, but I'm not sure which direction the swastika goes in. But I know the swastika fits perfectly in the Star of David, and the swastika, the Nazi swastika, is a symbol of Thor's hammer, which is another Odinist artifact. So Belial wanted to know how the two bloodlines could come together, and we talked about this. And I don't know the full story, but Belial ended up on the run in America somehow in 2011. And I was handed the stone with his essence to track him down.
You were handed
And
what?
I was handed the stone out the case in J.P. Morgan's Hall of
Right.
Gems.
That. Yes. Okay.
Princess Diana's cousin was there, and he introduced me to these people. My wife's family originally introduced me to these people, but he got me deeper in. Princess Diana's cousin, I won't say his name, and I held the stone, tuned into his essence, and then the mission was Operation Belial, to track Belial down across different states, and somehow the video where the policeman has disintegrated one of these plasma beams is connected to the Belial manhunt, and that was somehow connected to the state of Arizona at the time.
And did they get him?
But
Did you get him?
we got him in the end. But what is interesting is that
What happened?
well, the video was uploaded in July of 2011. Now, the picture with me holding the Brazilian princess is taken after that, in October of 2011. So there seemed to be some kind of time travel element going on, where we were going back in time a few months, still into America, but to search for Belial, because it's really difficult to get information on the video. It's all I've been able to find out is that it was supposedly a Rothschild was driving the car, the car where the individual inside disintegrated the policeman. It was a Rothschild, and we've found out that the license plate was from the 1950s of the car. And
What type of car was it?
I'm not exactly sure. It looks like it could possibly be a Ford or something like
In
that.
other words, was it a
Um,
modern car? I mean, a 1950s car. Bit of a.
Yes, it's definitely a modern car, but apparently the license plate was from the 1950s, and it belonged to a guy who went missing in 1953, but on a modern car.
So there's a bit of a dilemma there. Why use a well out of date license plate? Surely is that why the police picked them up in the first place, or?
Possibly. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Why would you use a number plate like that on a modern car to make yourself draw attention from the police, and then get pulled over, and then have to murder a policeman because you can't be stopped? The mission is too important.
So it's a bit bit like maybe when you're drawing attention to yourself like that, there must be a reason.
Maybe it was to send a message or something. I mean, they always change number plates around. In St Ives, that a van pulled up on the terrace I lived in. I thought I recognised some of the people there. They moved into the holiday rent next door. So I had the number plate checked out by some intelligence contacts, and the number plate was registered to 3 separate vehicles. So it's basically impossible to track it.
Right.
But obviously, we're talking about the whole Belial thing, and
So what happened to this guy?
what happened to what guy? Which guy?
Well, he was found, and then he was found, and then what was the function of the manhunt? What happened to this guy? What's the culmination of the story?
I don't honestly have the answer to that. There's still blurs. I can't remember.
Right.
I just remember.
So
those
what was the
details.
function of the ceremony with the Queen in Balmoral? You brought that story in. What happened there ultimately?
Because they wanted to find out, the 4 of us, who the spear can only go to one man.
Yeah.
One man runs the Illuminati. As we discussed before, the eye at the top of the pyramid represents one man.
Now,
So the spear can only go to one man.
What about this guy that we discussed? This Rockefeller guy, who looks like you, the clone.
Well, according to the online book written by Wes Penray, he was part of a program to look for certain children in the 1970s. He was born. He was the same age as me.
Yeah.
And you told me today that he's the adopted son of David.
Well, apparently
Rockefeller,
so.
which
I
didn't know.
mean, that's somebody else's research. So
Well, I didn't know that, but that's interesting because all the children in the IBIS program are adopted into other families.
we have got a couple of researchers in the Amash project who are independently just furrowing away and finding out stuff.
Well, the Illuminati is saying he's the physical embodiment of Lucifer or Satan on the earth. And that was the ultimate point of Project Mannequin. One of the 42 was going to be the embodiment of Satan or Lucifer in human form. Because like many religions, the Illuminati religion has a Messiah.
And what is Lucifer the Messiah for them?
Well, it's a Luciferian religion. They believe that Jesus, Lucifer, and Thor are the same person. The Germanic, the Nazis were waiting for a Messiah too, a Germanic Messiah.
And
That's why their
are
symbol-
they saying now that this has happened? That they have their
Well,
Messiah?
one of the 42 is the Messiah. Well, these are religious terms, which I don't like to get into, but they believe one of the 42 is going to be a major leader.
Well, it's interesting that number comes up in the comedy Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which the answer to the secret of the universe, life, and everything else is 42, which is a bit of a joke. But if it's meant to be Lucifer, it doesn't make that program that funny.
Well, that's interesting because I never knew the relevance to the number 42.
Well, in the comedy, which is on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that was the great answer to life, the universe, and everything. So, what is the time scale of what's expected for the rest of humanity? Are we talking global destruction, wars, doom, gloom, or wherever?
I don't have a time scale. I don't think that it's going to happen in the next couple of years. I think people have got a fair amount of time left. I think a lot of important things can happen between now and 2030. So they've got plenty of time.
We've got plenty of time.
But it's kind of set in stone. It can't be changed, and it's just the natural order of things.
The kind of things you've just been saying are pretty emotive, and surely there's going to be a few people who are going to object to this. And you're obviously saying it on video. So what's actually the cause? What's the point of doing this? Who gains, who benefits?
I think there's some people that are important to us that we want to see survive, and this will help them to come forward, maybe remember some more details and come forward. It's where we haven't, the shepherds haven't fully gathered their flocks yet.
Now, there's two independent forms of new humanities coming along. I mean, we interviewed Mary Rodwell quite recently, and there's all these new children coming forward. Their DNA is being indicates that they're much much superior. They've got a great deal more to offer, but the education system that we have is being used to program any of that out of them before they grow up. And then secondly, we understand from some sources that the whole point of the Falklands War was a black goo that the Argentinians were working with some kind of alien race in the Thule Island, south of the Falkland Islands. And that black goo was used by the British in some kind of super soldier program which failed.
Mm.
And they then, did the good old British thing, just flushed it down the toilet. And that is creating a series of upgraded human beings. I mean, this claims to come from a guy who's some of this information comes from researcher in exopolitics David Griffin, and also another one who claims to be the son of an MI6 agent, who is saying that this is going to change humanity. In the next 10 years, there are going to be a whole lot of new enhanced beings. What's the angle on that? Are these stories which are together? Are they congruent or independent?
I think the first point, whereas the education system for the new children is designed purposely to not be able to be understood. For instance, it's definitely a Zionist Jewish controlled education system and media. Whereas in the army, the textbooks were, say, the medic textbooks, for instance, it was like they were written by some kind of computer, not a person. And it was just so boring. The text was just laid out in such a mind-numbingly boring way that it was difficult to read it, basically. And for...
Is there some kind of psychotronic programming within the text to actually basically just do your head in?
Yeah, exactly. And it was for a person who switched on with a special type of DNA. It's designed. They just can't take it in. It's just mind-numbingly boring. And then they can say, oh well, this person has ADD, and we need to damage them with dangerous drugs. So
I mean, there is a school of thought in the United States that everybody is technically insane. Anybody who rebels against the government is clearly insane, and they need drugs to medicate them.
So basically, I think the point is that if you're gifted in some ways, you're not going to be able to follow the education system and be classed as stupid.
So the only way around that is private education.
Or I mean, maybe homeschooling or something like that. But things have gone so far now. It's going to take something huge to change all this now. It's just things have just fallen to such an extent. And then I think it leads onto the black goo subject. There's in the super soldier programs, there's something to do with these kind of worms. I don't fully understand it.
Well, this is something which was happening to Marie Kayali's daughter. Her head was full of these worms.
They're putting worms in people. They're putting them in all different orifices in the body. And,
I mean, some of the implants that people have got are sort of like squiggly things with lots of legs.
Yeah. I mean, it's all different. Some of them are really large, and they're all doing, it's kind of nanotechnology. I'm not really a scientist, but I think there's somehow, one of the functions is they're eating the human organs and replacing them with cybernetic organs. It's one of the functions. Where they're eating the flesh and laying some kind of egg behind it, which is building cybernetic organs. So
is this the sort of like the nanotechnology will be used to sort of invade and take over?
Yeah, and they're also you can program the worm to do something and then put it in somebody and control that person with these worms, whatever they are.
Now, the point of, is there any way that anybody can reference any of this material? Is this available in any programs? I mean, there is something on the goo.
I mean, there's information from on the Diamond Spider Wars on the internet, but
Now, where
there's
did this diamond spider war stuff come from? We have some evidence. We had some people say that there's colonies of these kinds of spiders, whether they're the diamond spiders that you're talking about, in Cumbria, in mines in Cumbria.
yeah, they're
Uh,
unfound yet.
what is a diamond spider?
It's a huge spider. They grow up to I think 10 feet long, and they have a diamond exoskeleton. So they're very hard to kill. And they're from the moons. I think they're on the moons of Saturn. They're on the moons of Pluto, Jupiter. I think they have colonies there. So I think we're dealing with a lot of these insect
Does that
races.
not mean that if they get warm, they'll fall apart? I mean, at our body temperature.
I think they can survive in normal Earth climates.
So basically, it's a crystalline carbon-based life form, or
Yeah,
is it
I mean
is it a
they look like
silicon-based
huge
life form?
tarantulas, but their exoskeleton is diamond based, similar to the super soldier exoskeletons, which is extremely hard metal. The closest thing could be closest Earth element would be a combination of gold and diamond, which is cold fusion alloys from this moon of Saturn.
Do you have any names for that?
For the moon,
Yeah.
it's called, I think you pronounce it Enceladus.
Is that the material or is it the moon? I'm not sure if there is a moon that's called that.
That is the name of the moon, is Enceladus.
Okay, I'm not currently. I don't know where all the moons. Now
Yeah,
the
it's a
problem
nice.
about this is in the last few minutes of this part, how were these moons discovered? How was this information mined, and how do these so-called spiders come here? I mean, are they physical in our domain?
Yeah, physical, very physical. And they've see a lot of these moons are guarded by these strange insect type creatures. So the moons are needed to be raided for the alloys. But then we're discovering all these insect type creatures, and now they're on Earth.
In other words, they contaminated whatever came back from these moons.
And I don't know exactly how they got here, but I know there's all pods coming down all over England. And they're full of different insects.
Now, we have a whole thing in British schools, or English schools particularly, called the Alien Pod Program. Have you heard of anything like that?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
The Alien Pod seems to be it's frightening to children because it's set up. I mean, these are false things that are actually made by the police. They bring them in and pretend as. I mean, what do you know about them?
I think that it's a kind of false flag operation because real pods are coming down, so they're setting up the false flag pods in schools to kind of disguise what's happening as a cover. I know personally, my daughter has been there's I think a naval helicopter came to the school and some of the children were bundled onto the helicopter from the school, and there's definitely, like I say, we talked about this before. Pods have come down in St. Ives, probably diamond spider pods.
I mean, this is. Is there any data anywhere where we can find out about this?
There's data about the diamond spider wars on the internet released by a naval intelligence guy, ex-naval intelligence guy. I think you just Google diamond spider wars, and it talks about some of the diamond spiders attacked some CIA bases in Virginia underground,
Do
killed
they
most.
did they prefer to be underground? Can they tolerate sunlight? How do we do?
Apparently they've appeared above ground, although in different countries, and attacked villages in India. And many people have died, but apparently they were the baby diamond spiders, not the fully grown ones.
So what sort of size were they?
Like a huge tarantula, the babies, but the full grown ones I think can grow to like about 10 feet wide.
So
Oh,
what sort of life cycle do they have? How long? I mean,
I think they have like a king and queen, and I think the queen lives underground and lays the eggs inside rocks. This is what I heard.
This is pretty fantastic stuff. Before we have people running out of the cinemas screaming and terrified, just to close up this part, I mean, what are there any cases of this stuff? This is fantastic stuff. I mean, it's completely fiction. I mean, nobody could possibly believe this is actually real. How does anybody believe this kind of thing? I mean, even getting the metal from the moons of the secret space program or whatever it is, this is all a concoction of fiction. Why does one get any credibility on this?
I mean, we're not really here to gain credibility. People can take it or leave it. We've done a good job to protect people from this and keep it off the streets. But we're kind of getting to the point now where we're tired of doing it, spending all our time protecting people from it, and we're just going to kind of let it go and let it come onto the streets in some ways.
I mean, at Basis 9, you said very briefly at the end of this part, there's a war going on and we're winning. Doesn't seem to be like that now. An ET war of some kind.
I'd say we're still in control of all the extraterrestrial situations on Earth, and because the super soldiers are so advanced and so powerful, that is the case.
How many super soldiers? Let's talk about that in part 4.
Part 4.
And tidy up any things you really want to get over or want to say, and how do we in some way verify this stuff? How do people get this on board and learn about it and find out about it? So as we run out of tape, first hour, I keep on wanting to call you James. Anyway, Michael, I'll be back and you can maybe tell us about the T-shirt. Maybe there's something deep and significant about that, is there?
This is just a pagan symbol, a man sitting between two wolves. It's an old pagan Germanic symbol.
All right. Okay, well, part 4 awaits.